This conference is being recorded.
Hello, can you please share with us your name and a little bit about what you do?
My name is Jojopah Maria Nsoroma, and I am a shamanic healer, counselor, teacher, and also the facilitator of a trauma resolution program that utilizes ancient indigenous wisdom from West Africa.
How were you introduced to the Dagara Medicine Wheel?
I came to the wheel through my connecting with Malidoma Somé, which happens first through an audio tape that I was given to listen to from a men's weekend that he did in conjunction with James Hillman, the noted Jungian psychologist, and Michael Mead, who's this wonderful raconteur and storyteller from the Bronx. And the three of them did a men's weekend in L.A., and it was recorded. And on this audio tape, I hear Malidoma talking about his initiation. And I was just so fascinated by it, the idea of initiation and its purposes. And from there, I find out that he actually wrote a book about it, which is called Of Water and the Spirit. And then from there, I actually get to go on a retreat that he put on with Brooke Medicine Eagle, who's an earth keeper from the Cheyenne tribe. And together, the two of them initiated a group of us, about 26 of us, into the medicine wheel tradition. And that's how I was introduced to it.
What's your element?
My element is fire. So I'm one of those persons that walks in between the worlds and is a gatekeeper for the fire portal that it's understood that our ancestors go through when they leave this realm. And fire people, because they have access to the entities that can see in all directions, are considered the soothsayers of the community. My mother always told me my mouth would get me in trouble.
So how have you noticed that showing up in your life personally and professionally?
Well, what the medicine wheel is really designed for by our ancient primal peoples was to have a way to really be reminded about purpose. And so each of the portals on the medicine wheel carries with it information about life purpose. The Dagara understood that everybody who is alive has a purpose. There's something that they're there to do and to contribute to the whole. And so there is understood that by having people understand kind of the essence of who they are, they're going to be better able to really stay on task and accomplish that which can benefit themselves and, of course, benefit the community. So it's almost like a way to ensure that you don't have anarchy in a system, in a group system, that you don't have people being selfish and going about things their own way, but actually get to understand that they're part of a whole. They're not isolated and alone, and that what they do matters. And so I just give this background because that was really important for me. I grew up saying that I wanted to go to college, and I understood that, and I was really encouraged to do that. But beyond going to college, I didn't really have a vision for how and what I would be. I just knew I wanted to go to college. At one point, I did want to be a lawyer, but then I decided, no, I don't want to do that. And so it just seemed, when I look back now, it's just really crazy to go through 16 years of formal education and really not know what it is that you really want to be or what it is that you can really contribute. So I come to the wheel probably in my late 30s, early 40s, and it really helped to solidify and validate for me the choices that I was at that point aware of and making in my life in terms of what I wanted my contribution to be and how I wanted to work. And so as a fire person, and it's so amazing because even before I come into contact with the wheel, I had already been made aware that I had this ability to talk to ancestors and to bring messages of the ancestors to people to help guide them in their life. And so basically became a spiritual counselor utilizing the ancestors even before I met the wheel. And so when I come to the wheel, it just really, again, gave me this validation. Well, of course you can do this. As far as the soothsaying, I've always had this real strong ability to, be the kid in the crowd that says, look, the emperor has no clothes, when other people are kind of not wanting to see what's really going on or in denial. I'd always be the person that's saying, wait a minute, no, let's look at, this is what's really going on here. Can't you see it? And, again, wasn't always diplomatic about it, so I would get in trouble, and so would see that as kind of, oh, this is a bad thing that I do. Well, once I came into contact with the wheel, I got it. Oh, of course, I'm a soothsayer. This is my job. And I also learned from the Dagara that if you're going to tell the truth, you need to have your horse by the door. And so could be more accepting about the fact that I was going to tell the truth and people weren't going to like it. They didn't want to hear it, or they wouldn't even want to come around me. But I didn't need to take that personally. I just needed to understand the nature of soothsaying and of truth-telling. And so, again, the wheel really helped me kind of accept these parts of my persona, I'll say, and to see them as gifts rather than I'm weird, there's something wrong with me, or a burden. So for that, in that aspect, just what it did for my self-esteem, for my ability to love myself and not look outside of myself to know myself, it's just been very, very magic and golden. And the Dagaras say that the most dangerous person in a village is a person who doesn't know their purpose because they look outside themselves to know themselves. And as we know, especially, for the Western society in terms of psychology, that's what codependency is about. Codependency is where you're in reaction to what someone is saying or doing because you believe that that's how you're going to be okay, instead of having what we call self-actualization, where you're able to really get it, that it really doesn't matter what somebody says or does, you're still the one that has to live with the consequences of whatever choices you make. So, again, the wheel to me, again, is very much helped me just in my own ability to know myself, to self-actualize, and to also act on that awareness with a lot of confidence and a lot more of, how can I say, a lot more courage, able to take many more risks than I had in the past in terms of who and what I am and why I am. So it's really been an important instrument in the shaping of my mature self, who I am as a mature woman.
Do you currently use the Dagara Medicine Wheel in the work that you do, and if so, how?
I do. I do use it. In fact, it is the framework for this trauma resolution program that I operate. It's a 12-week intensive, and it's focused right now on men who have come into the court system through domestic violence charges. And I also include in that some men who are going through drug and alcohol maintenance, trying to keep them away from relapsing. And so the wheel becomes a framework for this 12-week intensive, because the wheel not only provides information for the men about their essence and about life purpose, but it also provides us with healing methodology. So each of the portals on the wheel, for example, like fire, will tell you the essence of who you are, but also will inform you about how it is that you can stay in balance. And so fire, because it's about transformation and transmutation, we use it for things like when you have real out-of-balance emotion like rage, or if you're lost in liquid, which is, what indigenous people would consider somebody who's alcoholic. They're lost in the liquid. You would use a fire ceremony to help that person transform the energy, which basically is about the belief system, that would have them staying in the suffering that being enraged all the time or being addicted to alcohol will do to you. And so these portals teach us about the energetics of our existence, about the spiritual nature of our existence. And it's so fascinating that, we now have neurologists and biophysicists who, through, the knowledge of quantum physics, are more able to tell us now about the constructs of, like, the cell, and also more about what's going on in our brains. It used to be believed that the genes in a person's body would dictate what kind of diseases you get because it informed what color hair you had. Well, now what they're finding is the genes, although they give, a shaping, if you will, to the physical aspects of what a person looks like, how they sound, what color their eyes are, and all of that. It gives kind of the coloring, if you will, to the spirit. But it really doesn't have any control over whether or not you're going to get cancer, whether or not you're going to get osteoporosis, whether or not you're going to lose your hair at a certain age. All of those things really are within our control based on our belief system. And so what the Dagara technology, my teacher Melody Delma calls this a technology. What it teaches us is how to interrupt those patterns set in belief systems that may have been passed down through a family for generations. And it gives us a way to energetically, to spiritually break those dysfunctional cycles. And that's for behaviors as well as for illnesses, because, again, our belief systems are what holds all of that in place. And so if we can shift the energy of our belief system, we're going to shift our experience. And so it's just a technology that really, really works. And now we have Western scientists proving it.
The Dagara Medicine Wheel is an ancient tool. What do you think makes it useful and relevant today in these times we're living in?
Sure. The first thing is the West and Western culture. And I'll just focus on American culture. America is made up of diasporic people. And by that I mean people who left their home and came to a new place and did not have all of the same things from their home in the new place. So they had to adapt, and they had to create new ways of being and new ways of doing because they were in a new place. And so the piece about diasporic people is that your first generation is going to be all about survival. And when you're focusing only on survival, you don't have the time to grieve. You don't have the time to really let go of what it is that you came from. And so the reason that becomes a problem is because, and again, it's at an energetic level. It's just how we're made up as human beings. That's why war is so terrible. Probably the most terrible thing about war is it doesn't give people the opportunity to grieve the loss of those who die. And this absence of grief, this absence of being able to really energetically, emotionally, psychologically let go of what you left behind, grows into, a lot of these symptoms of dysfunction and distress and high blood pressure and depression and these unthinkable types of ills that we have here in the richest country in the world. People in poor countries look at the United States and say, well, people there must be happy all the time because they have food to eat, they have a place to sleep, they've got school systems, they got health care, they've got social care. They don't have all the kinds of floods and things that we have in other places. They live in the right part of the world based on the longitude and latitude. They must be happy all the time. And of course, if you were to pull any American on the street today and ask them, are you happy? Most of them likely will say, no, I'm not. And so what is that? What's that melancholy? What is that disturbance? Why can't we be happy? And so the indigenous people believe it's because we're still holding all this grief. We didn't take the time to grieve and let go, and so it gets passed down. The grief gets passed down to one family member after another. And so for me, in my experience, I spent 25 years in human services as a program developer, director, administrator. I worked at national offices as well. And in my working with challenged families and children and trying to come up with right methodologies, right programming to interrupt patterns of cycles of abuse, sexual, physical, emotional. The only thing that I have come across that really works so definitively is the use of this medicine wheel. Because I've done things where I've made sure that people could eat, I've made sure that people could sleep, I've made sure that people had access to education. But despite all that, there still can be a lot of very sick and unhealthy behavior going on. So getting at that, and again, doing all of the basic needs stuff it's crucial. You have to do that. People have to have a place to sleep and know that they can eat before you can really work on this emotional pain. But the use of the wheel is the only thing I've seen that really can just cut through into the heart of the matter, literally, and help people get freed up from this burden of emotional pain they've been carrying. Why is that important for the United States? It's important for the United States because, first of all, the United States is very much a leader country, whether we like it or not. It is the place that people look to. And it makes sense because we're made up of people from all over the world. We truly are the new world, quote unquote, where we are the great experiment of e pluribus unum, out of the many one. And so all other countries do look to us to see, what we're doing, how we're doing it. So we have I believe it's a moral responsibility to really keep learning how to be the best that we can be. And so addressing our emotional pain, addressing that uncried grief, to me it needs to be the most important thing that every American is taking on. Because we have a lot of things in our past, in our history. We came here not in a good way, whether it was in pilgrims or indentured slaves or people who were rich and wanted to get richer and did bad things to the Indians, and of course for African Americans like me whose ancestors came over in chains. So, where does all that pain go? Where did all that pain go? And again, I think that this methodology really is very, very powerful and effective for getting and into those places that sometimes psychology just doesn't. It's not able to get there because some, intelligent people especially can run games, can run rings around psychologists if they put their minds to it. But with this energetic work, there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Okay.
So what do you think the Dagara Medicine Wheel has to offer to the coaching process?
I think what it has to offer to the coaching process is the notion of purpose. Coaching to me really is about, helping a person really, really claim their purpose so that they can be successful and effective. If your purpose is to, feed the children, but you're working at something like, being a banker, then you're something's out of sync. You might be the best banker you could possibly be, but you're not going to be happy. You're going to feel like there's something missing. But if you get it that what you're really about is feeding the children, then you can take that banking knowledge and you can use it to figure out how to feed the children. So to me, again, and that's what coaching is about, how to get people aligned with their passion, with their purpose, with what it is that they really, really want to be doing. And the Dagara Medicine Wheel gives us that foundation. It gives us that way of knowing ourselves, of getting some confirmation, validation about these internal urgings, that we are inherently gifted with. We do a very poor job, both in the home and through our educational system, to help children understand that they came born fully knowing the truth of who they are and why they're here, what their sacred contract is. We forget as adults, as community members, that our job is to help every child that's born remember their purpose. That's our job. Because, again, people who don't know their purpose are going to look outside themselves. It's not going to be a good day. So in the coaching process, to use that medicine wheel to help open that person up to the truth, more of the truth of who they are, will really help them break through to, what I'm doing is the right thing, but I need to add this in, or I'm in the totally wrong field. This is not really what I want to be doing, And so it's just a wonderful, wonderful tool to help really get a person more conscious of the truth of who they are.
Is there anything else you would like to add about the Dagara Medicine Wheel?
I think that we who are alive at this time are very, very blessed to have the indigenous people willing to share this indigenous and ancient technology with us. During colonialism, which begins, when they figure out that the world isn't flat and you can actually sail around it, so back in the 1400s, starting from that time is when, Europeans begin to really decimate this knowledge, and it begins to go underground. It was considered witchcraft, it was considered voodoo, it was considered against the church, it was considered to be really bad. And so it goes underground. It gets hidden. And in my experience of working with the Dagara Medicine Wheel and the Native American Wheel as well, because it too had the same type of experience where, people were not allowed to do their sacred practices. in my experience, this information is so vital to our next steps as humans in our evolution, to really get out of our industrial mentality, the mechanism that gets born with the invention of the steam engine, which reduces people to cogs in a wheel. It strips them of their ability to be individuals who have these wonderful, unique gifts and who are able to create. Industrialism turns us into factory workers. It turns us into civil servants. And so many of the issues that, especially in the West, that we see that we are facing, really comes out of that absence of people believing that they matter. And so, again, I think we're just really blessed to have these ancient teachings surfacing again, and that we get access to them, we get access to this knowledge and wisdom, so that we really can do better in terms of our care for the planet, our care for the animals, and our care for each other as human beings. So it's really, really important wisdom and knowledge, and I say the medicine has legs of its own. It chooses where it wants to be and how it wants to be. Our job, those of us who are wisdom keepers, is just to keep saying yes. Okay.
Thank you.